Hey guys, what's going on? Today I want to talk about wind. Specifically, how much wind can a paramotor handle? I want to break this down into a couple different parts. I want to talk about how much wind can a paramotor actually handle at max capacity, and then what is actually a safe wind for the paramotor to handle. Generally speaking, with the paramotor trimmed all the way in or up to the neutral line, you're going to be cruising at between 20 and 30 miles an hour. When trimmed all the way out, you can go from 30 all the way up to sometimes 50 miles an hour. Hypothetically, if your paramotor could go 30 miles an hour, you could handle 30 miles an hour of wind. However, this is not exactly safe for you to do, depending on the conditions and the terrain. So, that brings me to my next point. How much wind exactly is safe for a paramotor? Now, I get asked this question a lot, and I have my own personal cutoffs. Some people's can vary, but I'm going to talk about what is ideal for a beginner, someone who has just gotten out of training and wants to take off on their own, some things that they generally need to follow. And I'll break it down into 3 parts. 6 miles an hour for mountains or any kind of rough, crazy terrain. 8 mile an hour for flat land with nothing hardly around, just flat, smooth land, maybe a few trees here and there. And 10 miles an hour for beach. The reason that I have these different cutoffs for different types of terrain is, for example, in the mountains, if you're flying along and you have wind coming over the mountains and you're on the back side of the mountain, think of it as a stream with rocks in it. As that water's flowing past the rocks on the back side of it, it's very turbulent and it'll come in clear and it'll go out, it'll have that real nasty, white, turbulent looking water to it. So that's kind of the same thing. Even though you can't see the air, that's exactly what it's doing when it's coming over that crazy terrain, especially if you're on the backside of the mountain. And when you're flying in smooth air, it creates a much more safe environment. So the more turbulence that you encounter, the more unsafe things start to become. Now let's move on to the flatlands. The reason I bump it up to 8 mile an hour is if you think about a state like Indiana or Florida or somewhere out in the Midwest that's more smooth and flat, the wind has nothing to blow over that's going to cause that turbulence and make things unsafe. So, all the way up to sometimes 10 or 12 miles an hour can actually be smooth depending on the circumstances for that day. Now moving on to the beach, the reason I increase it even more, when the wind blows over the water on the ocean, there is absolutely nothing to create turbulence at all. And also on top of that, you can fly all day from sun up to sundown as long as the wind is coming off the ocean. There's no turbulence, and there's also no thermals. I want to make it extremely clear that this 6, 8, and 10 that I'm talking about is not your absolute maximum numbers. This is just something that I've kind of come up with. I have a lot of people ask me all the time. This is one of the biggest questions I get asked. It's at least in the top 5 on how much wind is safe. I'm basically throwing these numbers out here, like I said, just for beginners. Will I personally fly in winds over that? Yes, and I have. Like I said, it just depends on the day, if there's cloud cover, if there's not cloud cover. There's several different factors that go into it. But, I go up, I feel out the air, and sometimes even in the flat land, if it's 10 or 12 mile an hour, like I said, it can be smooth, so you just got to go up and feel it out. But you don't want to be a beginner getting caught in something like that and then be in the air wishing you were on the ground. This is also just a good thing to draw a line in the sand for yourself. That way when you go out to the field, you unpack all your gear, you're looking around, you're looking at the windsock, you're looking at the winds aloft, and you're asking yourself, should I fly today, or is it possible for me to fly today? Just draw the line in the sand right there and go off of these rules or someone else's or your instructor. That's who you really should be going off of. I'm just making this video to let you know what I personally think the cutoff should be for a beginner. Now that we've kind of touched on the wind, there is more to it than just that. You also want to pay attention to your gusts. That's a huge factor. You don't just want to go out there and be like, oh, it's 3 mile an hour, it's good to fly. You also have to pay attention to your gusts. That is a major key role in if it's a good day to fly or not. So what are my cutoffs on the gust? 6 mile an hour over. So if you're in the flatlands and it's 6 gusting 6, you are good to go. If it's 6 gusting 7, then go ahead and pack it up because you know it's going to be a rough ride. Just always keep in mind with your wind and your gusts, the closer together that they are, say it's 2 gusting 2, that is perfect. That's a perfect scenario. The closer together the wind and the gusts are, the smoother of a flight it's going to be. The wider they are out, say 2 gusting 20, that's going to be a really, really rough ride. The reason us paramotor pilots strive to fly in these so-called perfect conditions, especially as a beginner, is because when you're up there, you don't want to be focused on what's the wing doing, you know, how to correct this, what to do here. You're focused on the flight. You need to have your head in the game. You need to be up there with a clear mind. You know, if you're up there rocking around in a bunch of turbulence and getting kicked around, wondering if your wing's going to collapse or not, your mind is not in the right spot. So you want to try to get that spread as close as you possibly can. If you're watching this video and you're already an experienced pilot, just take this with a grain of salt. You already know what I'm talking about. You already have your parameters and your limits drawn in the sand for yourself. Like I said, I'm just speaking to some of you new guys that have some questions and stuff. And especially if you've taken the journey to self-train, you may not have the knowledge or, you know, an instructor to fall back on to answer some of these questions for you. So the moral of the story, guys, is just make sure you're drawing that line in the sand. There's been a whole lot of incidences this summer that just didn't need to happen. Make sure that you're pre-flighting, you're really checking the weather. Take care of yourself. You know, it's not worth your life. There's always another day to fly. But it's been a while since I've been on here. Things have really been at a standstill. The weather has been absolutely horrible for at least the past 2 or 3 weeks. It's been super cold, rainy, windy, snowy, you name it. Just not flyable at all. I haven't even had a chance to get my glider out in probably almost 3 weeks, I would say. So even if it's cold, guys, I'm still gonna continue to fly. I'm gonna suit up in my flight suit and hopefully we can get some stuff in here within the next couple of weeks, I'm hoping. I hope everybody down here has a good Thanksgiving and a good Christmas if I don't see you until then. Until then, fly safe, blue skies, and I'll see you on the next one.